So if you have experience with doing brake jobs on other types of cars, this is going to be something that will really surprise you. All right, so we'll go ahead and we're going to retract the emergency brake. So we'll go ahead and put the car into the run position. I just hit the start button twice and that brings up the menu. I'm going to go into apps. Your menu may be different, but what we're trying to do is get to settings. So here we have settings up here, and then we're going to scroll down till we find brakes. So here's brakes, brake service, and the question is, do you want to allow the system to retract the brakes? And you're going to see some. So we got a park brake, we got to release first. So she's got that set. Release the parking brake. So I stepped on the brake, that released the parking brake, and now would you like to retract the brakes to allow the brake system service? So park brake is retracted. Everything's good there, so I'll go ahead and shut the car down. So if you have experience with doing brake jobs on other types of cars, this is going to be something that will really surprise you. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is remove this anti-rattle spring. Now you are going to have to pry on it and you'll probably bend it a little bit, but try not to destroy it because you're going to have to reuse it and you won't get a new one with the brake pads. And the way I do it is just try to get this one end of the clip up over the bracket housing, and then that usually takes care of it. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is just go right into this inspection hole and pry against the inspection hole the caliper to get that piston to descend back into the caliper. This is the part that's really unusual. Typically, you would have to spin that piston in with a special tool. That's not done here. That piston will not spin. Since the electronic portion of the emergency brake or parking brake has been retracted, it simply compresses just like a front brake caliper assembly. Then we'll pop these two dust caps off the back, and then we'll go ahead and put our 7mm Allen head tool in there, and we're going to buzz those bolts out. All right, good. So now with the pads popped out, and there are no clips on this, you'll notice there's no clips also packed with the brake pads. So those calipers just ride right inside the bracket. So now we're going to go ahead and take that brake caliper bracket off, and that's just two more bolts on the inside. Okay, so now the bracket's out of the way, and I'm noticing that the piston isn't quite in as far as I want it to be. So now it's just a typical pair of channel locks, but you do have to be careful here. Whoops, caliper slipped. But the back of the caliper assembly is actually plastic. So I'm going to be really careful here. I'm not going to put too much pressure on that plastic housing. Fortunately, the piston's not super sticky. It should move in pretty easily, and it does. So I'm done with that. Yeah, you see this, people using like C-clamps and that kind of thing to push pistons in. You should never have to use a C-clamp to push a caliper piston in. If you do, there's something wrong with the caliper and you probably need to replace it. All right, so here the rotor was sort of frozen to the hub. You notice I smacked it with a sledge. When you do that, just don't hit it too hard and try not to wrap on it any more than you have to. And all that impact goes right into the bearing and we don't want to damage that. So yeah, and from here, it's just the reverse. We've got our rotor on. We're going to go ahead and put the bracket on first. We'll put those two bolts in, get that mounted down tight. From that point, we'll go ahead and install the brake pads. And again, there are no clips that hold these pads in place, so we're just going to put the pads on. And then we're going to go ahead and put our caliper on and bolt that down. If we could find a torque spec, we can torque that down. You put your dust caps back on, and then you go back into that control panel and you're going to tell it that the brake service is over. It will then extend the parking brake assembly, so that'll be out of the way. And then before you go anywhere, make sure you stroke that brake pedal 3 or 4 times to make sure you got the pistons all the way out before you roll out of your driveway. Now hold on, before you leave, make sure you check out my video on brake bedding. It's really important that you bed the brakes properly to make sure you get the most life out of them and you don't get that warped rotor sensation coming back into the brake pedal. And I'll I'll see you on the next one. Take care.